This next part can be really intimidating for some people, but if you took my advice and sent off your donor wiring harness to Wire Diet or somebody else that knows how to do a proper wire diet, it's a breeze. It's quite literally a breeze because everything is just properly labeled. Art does a fantastic job of telling you what goes where. He even gives you an easy wiring manual to kind of help you out through some of the details of hooking up the starter and just things that people have had to figure out over the years. People have done this many times. It's not that hard to do. So in this episode, we're tackling the wiring. In general, the first process is just kind of lay things where they go. Rear harness, so that actually goes to the rear for the lights. Dash stuff in the front of the car. So now what we'll do is kind of start at the rear and get things like the inertia switch in place, the fuel, and then run this connector back up toward the front. So a great place to start is in the rear. Like I said earlier, your light harness is up there, so for your lights coming backwards. But we got all the stuff that needs to go mount here, including the fuel pump module, and then you got the inertia switch, and then you got the evaporation canister, and then obviously where the fuel tank plugs in. But I'm also doing this recessed battery box. I got this from FF Metals. I'll put a link in the description. Normally the battery goes right here, and it's really difficult to get to it, but we're going to mount it here. So what I need to do is go ahead and mount this, and probably go ahead and do all the trunk aluminum so I can mount the inertia switch in it and the evap canister and just kind of wrap things up back here, and I can work the lighting wires backwards as well. So we're going to go ahead and do that, get this trunk aluminum mounted. Just really focus on getting this rear end finished first before we push toward the front. Okay, this battery box from fmmetal.com comes pre-riveted just in a couple places. That's so if you want to powder coat it, you can take it apart and powder coat it. We're not powder coating it, so we're going to finish these rivets on each side, and then we'll mount the mounting bracket. Using our Clico buddies, where you put the front support bracket on and center it. It's like 4.5 and 4.5. And then there's pre-drilled holes on the back of the box we're going to mark so we can drill these holes and rivet to this 3/4 tube, and we'll rivet that brace on. It's a really good tight fit, by the way. So now we got the back of the box nice and level. We're going to drill a couple holes and rivet it to this 3/4 inch tube. A lot of holes to drill here. Okay, next up we're going to drill these 1/4 inch holes here on either side all the way through the tube and mount it with the hardware and then rivet the box in. Okay, if you followed my brake line installation, you may recall that I routed my plumbing across that diagonal 3/4 inch tube there. Now I just drilled a 1/4 inch hole right there. That's because I planned it so well, as you can see, I mounted it to the side to miss it. Not really, I just got really lucky right there, but just keep that in mind. You go drilling holes, remember where you put your plumbing. You know what I call these? These are the rings of shame. The box is backwards. There's 2 holes under here. They're supposed to be facing forward because that's where your battery cables come through. And then the one side with the multiple holes is so the air can flow a little bit better. The way I see it, if you do like that, there's a possibility of getting more water in it that way if you're running in wet conditions. So the only thing you have to do, rings of shame, fix it. Could I have made that work? Sure. But would it be properly installed? No. We don't build trash. We're professionals here. So fully riveted in, now we're going to take the trunk aluminum and put in there. We'll actually reach through the hole here and mark out the opening. Cut that opening, and then this plate here is what goes in its place. One key thing about the trunk aluminum, we'll have to drill a hole, make a little impression there and drill a hole so it sits nice and flat. Next step here. Not doing a whole lot of wiring right now, doing a whole lot of sheet metal work. I can make a whole episode on this battery box. So another mistake I just realized I made as I measured the panel out. This is not going to sit flush. That's because this is in upside down. You actually mount it from the bottom. Then the trunk aluminum will sit nice and flat. Also, when you cut your hole, this will sit flat. Right now it doesn't, see? It doesn't sit flat. So that ain't gonna work. The good news is these are easy to drill out on this side. These are a little tougher. So now all we gotta do is drill out these out again and flip this over. Hey, we're learning here, but we're gonna make it right. Sure, you could have covered up with carpet. Nobody ever know the difference except me. So now it's perfect. This part's nice and smooth and level with the frame. So we put the trunk aluminum in. It'll be all nice and flat. So that's what we're gonna do next, is cut that hole so it'll fit. Because this has been such an effort, I really want this to fit perfectly. So what I did, even though when you mark it from below, the best thing it does is give you a good location for where the screws go. So I just popped the screws in here, got exactly where the plate goes, marked it, so there you go. That's exactly how that needs to be cut. Now I just got to figure out how to do it that accurately. All right, had to do a little grinding, get a few tools out to get this fixed, but there we go. Nice little tight fit there. I think what I'll do, I can't quite rivet this panel down. I'll put a washer over these to cover those holes, so that'll fit nice and tight, but this thing's sitting nice and flat. I think that's about got it. So now we can start back with electrical, and we're ready to put power to our battery box. With our battery box installed, we can now focus on this rear harness and get it to the front, and the part we need from the front coming back to the rear, which is the tail lights and such. So we'll start with the battery cable, get it in, and then I'm going to attach it because it goes to the starter. And then we'll just kind of get this rear harness in place and then focus on getting this trunk aluminum done. I didn't like going through this hole because I remember last time it makes the carpet funky right there, and I have plenty of slack, and I was sitting there thinking, how do I get rid of the slack? Well, a good way to get rid of the slack is to run it a different route. So I ran it underneath the car up and into the front of the foot box, which you'll never see that because the body will be here. And then you can see here's the rear harness coming over to connector C, and then the harness comes back for the lights. It's funny how things work out. There's actually a ground point on the very end of this, and it worked out perfectly. So this is the fuel pump driver module. I mounted it through the chassis. There's another ground point here. So those two grounded there. The aluminum misses it. So it's just a good place to put the module because that's the kind of beginning of the rear harness. And if you ever had to replace it, you can get to it from under the car. So I've got enough slack here for my right lights and slack here for my left lights. It's funny how it all works out. So now what I'm going to do is, you see I'm not leaving the zip ties. Now we're going to use the insulated clip hardware and permanently attach everything through the chassis. That would be the rear harness installed, front to back, running around underneath there. See it there going underneath the tunnel, up around the front of the foot box, and into the foot box. So one thing I did here, I did wrap this in heat resistant tape because the header comes out right here in the J-pipe. Went ahead and got some of this front harness done on this side of the engine, including mounting this control module. as well as some fan relay, and getting everything kind of in place. Put this small panel in here. So this side of the harness is ready to go for the engine installation, which is our next major big step. Right now, let's put the trunk aluminum on. You can see we cleat-code these in place for now, and what we'll do is go ahead and mark the back side, drill the holes in the panel, just like we did the other episode. Nothing too cool about all this. Before we mount this side, we're going to need to mount the evap canister. And it has to go, looks like the best way is attach it to, bolt it through this brace down here at this angle brace. So that certainly would get in the way. We're going to go ahead and mount this and then have it start capturing some vapors because it stinks like gas in here. That'll work. Need to mount this panel first. Now we got it in a hole in position. Should be pretty easy to put on. Now that we got this panel mounted, we can go ahead and finish mounting the evap canister. That's the evap canister mounted. It's in a good position. It ain't going nowhere. We got it all connected. Went ahead and did the rear aluminum flooring. One thing you gotta be careful of is make sure you pull the inertia switch wiring through. Went ahead and mounted it as well. I'll show you in a real quick second. And then next we'll do these little side panels in the rear. We'll do the upper floor and then the rear cockpit. That kind of wraps us up for aluminum panels for now until we get ready to mount the body. After that, we're on to the drivetrain. Oh, I need to mount the PCM. Kind of last thing to do for wiring this phase. Nothing particularly tricky about this. I actually reused the OEM hardware, drilled a smaller hole, screwed it in there. I want to make sure that button's down because when you go try to start the car, if it's up, it ain't gonna start. Got the upper floor all installed, so we're good back here on the rear aluminum. The next will be the cockpit wall on the back side here, but I've got speakers coming. I'm gonna wait to do that and make sure I fit them exactly where I want them. Be easier to cut the hole too. So next I'm gonna finish up a few wiring things, including mounting the PCM. I'll show you what that looks like. Not a lot of instructions to show you on mounting the PCM, but you really do need the bracket, which I left in the donor car and had to order a new one. You just rivet it to the panel and start plugging stuff in. You just gotta be careful about how you put the PCM in and how it plugs in as well. All nice and tight going over to the foot box for the driver's side. We're gonna go ahead and mount the fuse box, which can be a little tricky. Here's my fabricated fuse box bracket. Basically took a piece of aluminum, a little bit thicker aluminum, and bent it 3 directions, 1, 2, and 3. I'll mount it down to the tube still here and to the side as well. And then the fuse box itself will mount to the top here. You can see I put some heavy duty duct tape in it to kind of protect the edges so we don't fray any of these wiring. So let's mount this and then we'll be pretty much done with the wiring. Here's where we stand with the wiring. We got the fuse box all mounted, a couple of rivets in there. It's in there nice and tight. Got everything kind of pulled through, zip tied. Remember I told you to save the ground screws from the donor because they're self-tapping. They're really nice. Drill a pallet hole. You got a good place to ground. This is the ground for the roll control and the ground for the harness itself. Here's a look under the dash. Got the OB2 connector installed as well. And you can see how the fuse box is all nice and snug in there. And then all these wires will be behind the dash, of course. Got creative with a license tag light, the wires for it. Ran it through this tube still here, drilled a couple of holes, and then also here on this back tube still. Fished it through, and now my wires are all clean, not in the trunk. It's a nice clean look. Got my speakers for the back cockpit wall, so we can go ahead and put it in as well. And kind of round off the episode with putting it in, cutting the speaker holes, which I got these in today from Scar Audio. Gotta love Cyber Monday. Let's see what we got because I ordered the amplifier as well. So what we got is the 6.5 inch full range marine grade audio speakers. So these suckers are nice. They're gonna put out a lot of noise. And hey, if I need some bass, I might get a subwoofer too, because they have marine grade subwoofers as well. These should be black to match the theme. Check that out. That's gonna look cool in the back wall. And they're somewhat waterproof because they're marine grade. So if you get stuck in the rain, it's all right. Your speakers can handle it. Let's get these suckers mounted, or at least get the holes cut in that rear cockpit wall. Here we go to setup. We got it all marked for where we're going to rivet it, and then your speakers go right here. What you got to avoid is where the straps for your seat belts go and the tubes for your roll bars. So the only place they can go is kind of in the center, which is okay, because when the seats are in, they actually kind of block this area. Well, this is the back. So this is the only area exposed, so they're right there so you can hear the music. If you really could move them over here, we kind of block some sound. We're gonna cut this and it's gonna make a lot of noise. Couldn't show you all that because I had a little Bluetooth conflict between my headphones and working with the audio on the video thing. But hey, take a hole saw, pop you a couple holes around the circle, then take you a jigsaw, cut it right out. Of course, Scar Audio provides the right templates and the tools for that. There you go. Now we got our speakers in place. Yeah, you're gonna see them, but the seats do come up about right here. If you want audio, it's about the only place you can put it. It's right there where you can hear it, because these things are loud. You don't really want them outside where the side pipes are. You want it right here where your ears are. Well, wiring evolved into doing a whole lot of aluminum I wasn't anticipating, but you really got to do it as you go. That includes the rear cockpit, the trunk floor, the sides and the rear. But we got all the wiring in place now. We are ready to put a drivetrain in this thing. I'm talking engine, transmission. I'm missing the drive shaft. I ordered it about 4 weeks ago. Still a couple weeks out. That's all right, not a problem. So next up, we're gonna finish what we started on the engine, with the engine cleanup a few episodes back, and then we're gonna mount up that Tranzilla and get it slapped in here.
Space mounted.
Daylight.